Hi everyone, welcome to this episode of Yoga Rebels. So, Christina, one of our watchers, thank you for watching.
And for interacting with us.
Yes.
More stop please.
Yes. Made a comment about doing meditation or yoga to numb. And so we're not, first of all, I want to make the caveat, we're not making a judgment on what she said. What she said actually made us really think about, it was very thought-provoking. So I'm not, there's no comment here on whether or not she's right or wrong. It's the fact that her saying, I don't think there is a right or wrong to that, to be honest, but yeah, we just have thoughts and comments.
I was shocked because I had not thought of it that way before, and I have never had anybody point it out in that way, but I realized that I 1000% have used meditation to block negative feelings, which is counterproductive because I think, or I believe, that one of the goals of meditation is to be able to sit with discomfort, sit with anything. And I think that this is where I was especially shocked, because I think it's interesting how I, despite, my knowledge of how meditation works and what it is, have still created this shift in my brain. Like, I thought of an example. One time I stubbed my toe and it hurt really, really bad. I had this idea, well, I have a meditation practice. What if I sit with it? What if I sit with this pain? And I kind of did it as an experiment, and I sat with the pain of my toe, just throbbing and painful. And I just kind of sat and watched the pain fade away. And at the end of it, I was like, wow, that was really powerful. And it wasn't that bad. I was able to sit with it. But when I'm faced with negative emotions, usually fear, guilt, shame, I try to meditate in a way that I'm only paying attention to my breath. And not think about the thing that I'm feeling. And that I was very shocked, because I've been meditating a long time, a lot of years, and doing yoga a long time. And when I read that question, I was kind of like, oh, everything I thought I knew is wrong. So I'm really grateful for that question, because I think that I'm going to have to make a shift, because when I teach meditation, even when I teach yoga, especially when I teach for things like anxiety, depression, I teach people to try to sit with discomfort within the context of the classroom, because it's a safe space to practice it. So when you go out into the world with that resilience that you've just built up, you will be able to manage it. So we can't make stressful things go away, we can't make bad feelings go away, but we can change our ability to sit with it, which is the resilience piece. So my mind is blown.
Yeah, seriously. And so, for example, people who use drugs or alcohol or some other form of substance to block, it's similar concept to like chronic pain. How we got into this opioid crisis and so forth is trying to numb the pain, whether it's physical pain, emotional pain, whatever. The studies that I have no link to right now, but that I have read, and I'm very bad at that there's evidence that shows when you do face the problems, the pain, and so forth, you're more likely to be able to work through it. Avoidance is never the answer, really.
No, I mean, it perpetuates, in terms of anxiety disorders, phobias, which are anxiety disorders, depressive disorders, the avoidance tends to perpetuate the thing. So if it's agoraphobia or a specific phobia or a social phobia, the avoidance gives you a very temporary, maybe a little bit of dopamine because you got to avoid the thing, so you get that little reward, but long term it's just going to get harder and harder and harder and harder to deal with that thing is that you're avoiding.
And the practice of sitting with discomfort, with being with it, that in and of itself can be a meditation. So just as you said, like with your big toe, for example, you think about, okay, what does it actually feel like? Because saying pain is so general.
Right.
But, you know, first of all, did I break my toe?
I knew I didn't, that's why I was like,
yeah.
I was like, this is not a hospital scenario.
But then truly, like, what would they be able to do anyway? When
Right.
it comes to a broken toe, it's really hard. But anyway, you know, maybe you're looking at it. Maybe you say, oh, look, now there's discoloration. Now there's bruising. Where do I feel the pain radiating? But also the idea with practicing being with the pain or discomfort is to help you manage it and change your relationship to pain. And, you know, so the scale of 0 to 10, maybe over time of practicing this, the same injury, maybe 3 months later of actually practicing a mindful meditation, instead of a 10, maybe that's a 5.
Right.
Same exact feeling, same exact injury, but your relationship to it has changed.
Right. And interestingly, one of the most effective interventions for chronic pain is cognitive behavioral therapy, because it asks you to look at the pain and your ideas, your perceptions, your feelings about the pain, rather than, and this is not to say if somebody experiences chronic pain that they should not take medications and do other things, but this is an intervention that has been shown to be effective, because rather than taking whether it's an opioid or just Tylenol or Advil, it gets you to change your perception of pain. So it's not necessarily making the pain go away, but it's changing your thoughts and your feelings around the pain, which may increase your resilience surrounding that pain. So you might still need medication, but how you perceive it could change and make it more manageable. So,
and a lot of this stuff, I mean, I guess maybe this is sort of redundant to say this, but it's all relative too. So for example, because my job is to work with my body. When I have an injury, so right now I actually do in fact have an injury. I dropped myself on my knee. Look at my fancy hairy legs. So in Monday's class, this is kind of funny, so I'm going to diverge for a second. So there was literally nobody in class, but because I've got the Patreon thing where we've got Monday, Wednesday, Friday classes, I stream them. I'm still teaching to a camera and nobody in the room, and yet I hurt myself.
you could have said that there were like 20 people in there, nobody would know.
Right?
It's a packed house.
It was a packed house and I hurt myself, but it was funny because literally nobody's there and I hurt myself. I rolled over my knee somehow, all of a sudden it's swollen. But here's the thing, so for me, because I use my body for nearly everything that I do to make money. I'm not a prostitute, that sounded really bad actually, but
Type of massage, though, you gotta use your feet,
Right.
your hands, you gotta use both feet.
Right, exactly. And so an injury to me is perceived more painful, perhaps, than somebody who doesn't need their knee for everything that they do. I mean, you're still going to feel it because you did injure yourself, but the perception is different because it's all relative. So that's one thing to think about when you're working with injury, when you're working with pain, recognizing that it's your mind's, it's a mind trick. But anyway, so I don't necessarily want to get into injury as a whole thing or pain as a whole thing. It's interesting though, the concept of numbing is, I mean, we have so much going on in our society, in our culture.
Yeah,
There's
it's rough
so
right
much.
now.
There's so much coming at you. I mean, I certainly don't blame anybody for trying to numb this. It's because you're constantly being bombarded with social media, the news. I mean, there's so many people. We're overpopulated practically. I mean, it's just hard to get time alone.
Right, this is where yoga, meditation, having an offering of these kinds of classes is challenging, because if you read about yoga for fill in the blank, for depression, for anxiety, for whatever the thing is, the article is going to usually imply that you're going to a place and you're just zenning out, and you're just kind of like, maybe just laying on a bunch of pillows, which restorative yoga is, but meditation as meditation or yin yoga or any hatha yoga practice is hard work. And I think that is a common misconception, because a lot of times people will come to yoga and they say they came to relax, which you could absolutely feel relaxed after class, but yoga and meditation is asking you to be present in your body, be present in your mind, and to be okay with what's happening right now, which means you might not feel comfortable, you might not feel relaxed in certain poses. They might make you feel like you want to punch your teacher a little bit. But not everybody's really explaining that or talking about that. So I think sometimes people get themselves in these situations where they go to a yoga class or they go to a meditation class and they never come back, because they were not expecting that. They were expecting to go, and I think I'm describing like being swaddled in a fuzzy blanket and just held for an hour, and that's not where the work happens.
And like people use the word bliss a lot.
Bliss,
and I agree. I mean, the feeling that, so I go for that kind of thing when I go for a massage.
Yes, that's a really good example of that, because I think unless you're doing, sometimes I get trigger point massage, which is not pleasant, and it's just specifically working on the spots that really hurt. If you're not doing something like that, I think massage is a really good place for those kinds of things, because I think you can, and I think we do need that time to just mentally just check out and just be in our bodies in that way. And I think restorative yoga is an opportunity for that. I think massage is a good opportunity for that. But I think your traditional physical yoga practice and your meditation practice are not necessarily those things.
And meditation's hard, and
it's so hard.
It really is. And I mean, to the point where, for example, if you were to decide to become a Tibetan monk and go live with the Dalai Lama, you will find that the folks around them revere the monks so much because they practice meditation, because meditation is considered such a high form of, well, they do call them yogis. I mean,
and for hours a day. I couldn't even sit still through this video, and we're only like 10 minutes in. I'm gonna move again.
So meditation, not only the physical part of sitting still for, I mean, these people do it for months.
They get up
years.
They exist on very little sleep, and
I mean, these guys are master meditators, but meditation is hard. And the thing is that usually there is, I don't want to say a goal, but there's something that you're focusing on. And so keeping your mind focused on that thing, whether it's your breath, or it's your, I don't know, a candle, or a sensation, or it's a compassion meditation, or a mindfulness meditation. So something that you're doing, and I would argue that depending on your personality type, where you are in life, what the hell's going on in your life, it could probably be harder than a physical practice.
I think it is. I think that I have a tendency still and an ability to check out a little bit in certain types of physical yoga practices because I've been doing it a while. So even in a class where it might be a faster paced class, maybe it's more vinyasa style class, I could probably mentally check out and flow through vinyasas and not really pay attention to what the muscles in my body are doing as I lower chaturanga, come into upward facing dog. I could easily check out, but if you ask me for that same chunk of time to sit and only focus focus on my breath, I'm probably mentally going to have more difficulty.
Yeah.
I think it's infinitely more difficult.
Yeah.
Because you can kind of distract yourself with the physical movement, and the more you do it, the more you can kind of anticipate what might come next, and then it gets increasingly easier. So I think the more yoga I've done, the harder it becomes to really stay present. Because if usually, in Warrior 1, you might either go Warrior 2, you're probably mentally going to be able to check out a little easier.
Yeah.
There are just certain
Or if
things.
you're just following what everybody else is doing, you're like, oh, now my body is doing this.
And there are certain poses that just lead well to other poses. So if you kind of have in your head, Warrior 2 might lead to reaching back, that transitions could be really mindless.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or back, maybe Warrior 2, maybe to side angle, reaching the other way. That could also be really mindless, because if you felt it enough times in your body,
now we do this.
You can easily go on autopilot.
Oh yeah, and I find as a teacher, that's where staying mindful is sometimes really challenging for me. I actually found myself a couple times in my class this morning, like I was teaching something that I normally teach. And all of a sudden I was like, oh shit, where am I in this whole sequence? Because I say it so often, my mind checked out for just 1 second. Yeah. It's like, oh my god, I can't remember what's next.
or if you genuinely do, if you have to do something on each side, if it's more than like 2 things, I've skipped one of the things, and then a student will point out, but we can do this. Yeah, so.
I know, but do you really want to do it anyway, or whatever?
And then you have to backtrack and.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's right. Let's do that now.
Yeah, I'm guilty of that from time to time, and I always have to think about why that happened.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So did we say what we wanted about the numbing thing? That was a really great conversation. That was a really good point.
I love that somebody felt empowered to ask that question.
Yeah,
I
share that. Yeah,
I think that was a really important question, and I think that's a really kind of eye-opening thing to bring into our physical practice, to notice it. So if your goal is to be present, noticing when you're kind of veering off. But on the other side of that, treating yourself with that compassion to gently bring yourself back. So rather than attaching a story to it, why you did it, or getting angry, or saying, oh, I should be doing this, just that compassionate, gentle bringing back. Yeah. So with as little judgment as possible, because we all do it. Mm-hmm. Our minds, I think when we ask our minds to do yoga and do meditation, we're fighting our biology.
It's true. It really is true.
I don't think our brains are wired for this kind of thing. Our brains are wired to hold on to negative experiences more than positive. They're wired to be hyper-vigilant so that we don't die or get eaten by a bear.
Right.
So these things are not natural things, and it's easy, I think, for new people to yoga or meditation to get really angry at themselves and wonder why they can't do this, whatever the thing is, because our brains don't want us to.
Right. Now, so here's one thing that I want to bring up, though. So a lot of times we do say that something is bad or negative.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, is challenge yourself to, okay, so if I injured myself, injury in and of itself is not a good thing because you just broke something.
Right.
However, if you find that you've got a thought and you don't like it, does it necessarily mean that it's a bad or negative thought?
Right.
Because there may be some usefulness to that thought. Mm-hmm. So taking that, okay, so let me try to be specific. Okay, so in the morning, 3 a.m., I tell people this all the time. 3 a.m. is I'm most vulnerable to my thoughts.
When you just randomly wake up.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
And so the more I can sleep through the night, the more I feel positive, because I didn't get caught in that 3 a.m. What is it? Okay, so your the class that you're going to teach, you're probably not going to teach it very well, all of these things. And so the negative thoughts, or these thoughts, I'm going to try not to use the word negative. So what I deem negative, the thoughts that come into my head at 3 a.m. are usually things that I'm getting down on myself about. You shouldn't have eaten that last night, or you're fat, or you're not a good teacher, you're not making enough money.
Oh God, do we have the same brain? Mine doesn't at 3:30. We must be on shifts.
I see. Yes. The imposter syndrome.
Oh,
I shouldn't be doing these
Lord.
things anyways. There are people that are better than this than me. Why are my students even coming to my studio? Why?
I should just call them tomorrow and tell them not to ever come back.
Yeah. Just go to the other studios. There's 130 yoga studios in Columbus. Just go to one of those. But those are the things that's like, okay, so if I switch, just as you said earlier, switch the narrative. So some of these things are valid things to be concerned about. Like, okay, yeah, I'm self-employed. I own a small business. I do need to be concerned about finances. However, 3 a.m. is not the time.
Right, what are you going to do about it
Yeah,
then?
it's really not helpful.
Yeah.
There's no way I'm going to be billable doing anything at all at 3 a.m. But just saying to myself, okay, I'm going to write it down, and this is, write it down, get it out of my mind, put it down, I'll take care of that later. Worrying about, am I going to get to the studio on time? Is my alarm clock set? Like, oh my God. Like, I don't know how many times my phone has successfully woken me up.
Right.
And yet I still think, oh my God, is it gonna go off?
Right.
What if I sleep through my alarm and then everybody shows up to the studio and I'm not there? Oh my God.
And you're like, has that ever happened?
No, it's literally never happened.
Yeah.
But it might. So, okay, so I'm fat. How about let's switch the narrative and say, you know what, Burg, this week you're physically exhausted.
Right.
So I didn't do as much of my physical stuff that I normally do. My body actually does need a rest.
Yeah.
I'm not fat. I'm taking a rest from all of the physical things I'm doing.
Right. And if you're very tired, then you become more vulnerable to
God.
the mean chatter.
Yeah.
It's a fact.
Yeah.
So the more we can physically exhaust ourselves, the more those messages come in too.
And so it is. So it still is sitting with the thought, like, okay, thought, I'm going to take you for a second. I'm going to gently and compassionately take you. You little thought, you need love and attention.
Yeah.
But let's look at it and say, okay, why am I feeling this way? Is there something truly that I can do with this that's actually productive, that isn't just sitting there digging away at my heart and my soul, telling me I'm a loser all the time? So, it's like the kids in school that make the most ruckus are the ones that probably don't get enough attention at home.
Right.
So
please look at me.
Yeah. So it's that negative. It's the negative attention. They just want any attention. They don't care. So they're going to do something bad to get attention.
Right.
Those are these stupid thoughts I get at 3 a.m. where my mind is really what really needs to happen is I just need a vacation.
Right.
I just need to take
right.
a break.
And if it's 3 a.m. and you woke up, you didn't get enough sleep, so you're more vulnerable. I like to say, and I should practice this more with these kinds of things, and within the context of a classroom setting, as the thoughts come, trying not to label them as negative or positive, trying to label them just maybe it's the word thoughts or thinking, or if you
there's a thought,
little shithead, whatever, whatever, just labeling it in a neutral way, because we know now a lot of the 80s and 90s there was a lot of positive psychology, so the idea that you can like fake it till you make it, and affirmations, things like that, like saying a thing to yourself 500 times a day to make yourself feel better. We know now that that's not really how our brains are wired, and it doesn't really work. But what does work is a neutral factual statement, which is why labeling those things as just a thought or thinking or whatever is going to be more effective than saying this was good or this was bad. Because when we try to break them into those categories, or the worst one is to say it's not that bad, or everything's fine when it's not fine. Yeah, denial in disguise as a positive affirmation doesn't work either. So just neutralizing it in that way is what can allow us, I think, actually like do the work to get through it. So maybe I'll try that sometime.
Yeah, sometime I'm gonna practice what I preach.
Man, next time I'm awake at 3:30 and my brain's like, you suck. Nobody's gonna believe that you actually do any of the things you do. I'll just say, you're just a thought.
Yeah, thought.
Get out of here, you thought.
Right,
Or stay. Whatever, I don't care.
That's right, exactly.
Whatever.
Yeah. Well, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you gained some thoughtful insight in that. If you have any thoughts on that as well, what are the things that, for example, like, why do you meditate? Do you meditate?
Right.
Would you like to meditate? Would you like to learn how? If you haven't meditated before, what's stopping you?
Right.
So those would be some good things to think about. And if you would like to share those thoughts with us, that would be great, because then we could talk about why people are uncomfortable starting a meditation practice, or we'd love to talk about reasons why people do meditate.
Right.
So, yeah, wonderful. Thank you to our Patreon supporters. We love you all. And if you did like this, please click like or subscribe, and we'll talk to you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Hi everyone, Burgundy here. I just wanted to let you know that Yoga Rebels is going to be taking about a 1-week break or so. Lauren and I are going to sit around and think about some more podcast discussions, and we're just taking a break because we can. So thank you again for watching or listening, however this is coming to you. We greatly appreciate it. Again, we would love to have your comments or suggestions for discussion, and shoot me an email. You can find that on the website. Put a comment in Patreon or YouTube or SoundCloud, however you're listening to this. And we will see you again in a couple weeks. Thanks.